Hey guys, welcome back to Razor RC. Today I thought I'd shoot a quick little video talking about all the different spring options that are available for the TLR 22 line of shocks. So these are the shocks that are basically used on all the 1/10 scale vehicles, the 22 buggy, truck, short course, four-wheel drive buggy, and also the 10 SCTE, which basically has converted over to 22 shocks on the last version. So all the springs can basically be separated in two different categories. It's a little bit confusing, but I'm going to walk through it as best I can. So essentially, there are standard springs and low frequency springs. And then obviously there are front and rear springs for each of those. And then so let's talk about the standard springs first. The way you can tell that they're standard springs is that basically they come in this gloss black color, sort of this shiny, glossy looking black. I think it's basically like an enamel paint or something, but that's how you can tell that they are here. And then the springs also come in basically two sizes, a truck and a buggy spring. So a little bit hard to tell from here, but basically the truck springs have paint on both ends of the spring. So like here's a blue rate spring. You can see that it's actually got a blue swab of paint on the top, and then also here, I can find it, also here on the bottom, it's kind of wearing off right there, the little blue paint. You know, maybe this one's a little bit easier to see. It's actually blue paint on the bottom, blue paint on top. So that means it's a truck spring. And then there's also buggy springs, and they only have paint on one end. And this one's also pretty hard to see, but there's basically only paint here on the top. That's a little bit dab of purple paint. So buggy springs only one paint, truck springs only two paint swabs, one on each end. And the other difference is actually that they come in a little bit different rates. So generally the truck springs have fewer coils. You know, it kind of depends on the spring and the different color, but for example on the buggy spring here on the right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 coils. And then on the truck spring, we've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coils, which basically means it's a more progressive spring. And you can kind of see that the coils are a little spaced out a little bit more. So that's the difference between the truck and the buggy springs. Now that's for the front. Now on the rear of the springs, actually it's a little bit different. So once again, we've got buggy springs, paint only on one end here. In this case, we've got yellow springs. And then the truck springs are obviously longer because of the rear shocks are generally longer on the trucks, and they've actually got paint on both sides. So this is actually white paint, a little bit hard to see against this white background, but that's what we got there, white springs. And then for the rear springs, it's sort of reversed. Actually, the truck springs have more coils, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 coils. And then the buggy springs on the rear, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sort of 9 coils. So a little bit confusing. Truck springs on the front are generally fewer coils and more progressive. Truck springs on the rear are more coils and more linear. And it kind of depends on the springs. Like I have some silver springs, it's sort of the same. And sometimes, you know, the truck springs are generally a little bit longer on the front. So a little bit confusing, but that's what I found basically for the buggy and the truck springs, front and rear for the standard springs. So let's put these back before I get them all confused here. And then the second thing I want to talk about the standard springs is that basically for the fronts you can get a wide variety of spring rates. So they're all individually packaged between basically pink and black. Buggy and truck, you can pretty much get all the different parts for each individual springs. But then they also make a set of optional super stiff front buggy springs. And then so they come in this 3-pack if you want the super stiff front buggy springs, which come with basically a purple, a brown, and a black. So this is the brown, which honestly looks exactly like the purple, light blue, and then brown. So everything's packaged except for those super stiff buggy springs, and they don't make the super stiff front springs in a truck version, only the buggy. So I'll actually put a link to a spring chart I made. It's based off of Frank Root's spring chart, added with some extra springs that have come out since. And I believe some other guy actually originated the spring chart. So I just kind of update it a little bit. So those are the standard springs, and then they also make these low frequency springs. So let's kind of take a look at some of those. So the low frequency springs, you can tell, are a little different, and if I can get these apart. So the low frequency springs, it's a little bit hard to tell in this video, but basically they're not quite a glossy black. They're a little more of a matte black, sort of a black oxide finish, and they actually only have the paint here, basically 2 coils off of the one side. So that's how you can tell it's a low frequency spring. And these come only in buggy length. They do not make these in truck length. And the difference between a low frequency spring and a standard spring is that basically what I found is the low frequency springs, it's a little bit less of a rebound. It almost feels like you're driving with a little bit thicker shock fluid. So it'll compress about the same, but it will rebound a little smoother, a little slower, and not be quite as bouncy. So, it's a tuning option. I think these are pretty similar to like the Yokomo springs a lot of guys run. They're a different type of metal, I assume, and a little less bouncy feeling. So you will actually notice this quite a bit. It gives a little bit of a softer feel, a little more traction, I find, but it's not going to rebound as quick and not be quite as reactive. Depending on what you're looking for. So they make these also in front and rear springs, buggy length only. The rears I found useful. The fronts I generally have not found very useful because they only come in a very soft set of rates. So the fronts, you might use them on like a 22 buggy, but pretty much every other vehicle they're going to be too light and too weak for. And the last thing I want to talk about are basically the different spring cups. So you can use truck springs obviously on trucks. You can use buggy springs obviously on buggies because they tend to be a little bit shorter. But you can also use buggy springs on the trucks, and what they make are basically these optional +4mm spring cups. So on the right we've got sort of the standard spring cup. On the left we've got the +4mm extended length spring cup. This allows you to run the shorter buggy springs on your truck shocks, and basically take out that little bit of extra space so you can still get the preload tensioner down low enough to actually get enough, correct ride height and that sort of thing. So nice little option, or some of your truck springs may still be a little bit short depending on how heavy your vehicle. You can also use these. So definitely recommend picking up a set of these if you don't have these already. I'll put the part number in the description also. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the springs that are available. Once again, regular standard springs are shiny black, glossy. They come in buggy and truck. Buggy's got 1 swab of paint on the top. Truck have 2 swabs of paint, 1 on each end. And then you have the low frequency springs, only come in buggy length. And they have 1 swab of paint, basically a couple coils off of the top, only on one side. So hopefully this vehicle is helpful. I know it's pretty dang confusing, but there's a lot of different options, a lot of different springs you can get for your vehicle, basically fine tune how you want it to drive. So thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and look for more videos soon. Thanks guys.